You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Nathan.
And I'm Michael.
And today, Moon Knight episode 4.
What just happened?
What just happened? So, yes, we did play. For you guys to do not know, I am actually not Nathan.
Yeah,
but I'm actually a different
I'm
personality.
not Michael. My other personality is Jared Fielder, actually.
Jared Fielder.
Maybe I am Moon Knight.
Maybe you are
realize
Moon Knight. You're just realizing it. So we did this because, of course, Moon Knight episode 4 was absolutely a trippy piece of work that I'm absolutely baffled after watching.
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, I thought the episode itself was great.
It was so amazing. I haven't felt this way since WandaVision.
Oh, no. Like, I haven't been this confused since WandaVision.
What the crap just happened?
Exactly. Right.
What happened?
Spoilers ahead as we talk about this episode in depth and go through it with you guys. So, I mean, the episode in general I thought it was a great episode. I mean, Moon Knight so far, but all 4 episodes have been super consistent, super great.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of completely baffled our minds and kind of altered everything that we think of as reality.
Yeah. And watching the end made us go back and question, okay, throughout the 4 episodes, what could have been, not real?
Right. Which one of these, could this not have been happening?
This scene.
Right. Right. Which is so fascinating and such a cool concept. I mean, at first, when we were first theorizing about Moon Knight, I think back to this because we were like, okay, is it going to play into the supernatural element? Or is it going to play into the physical mercenary type Batman kind of Moon Knight type of show?
Yeah.
It's definitely in the realm of the supernatural for sure. Very supernatural,
sure.
which I love. And I love that it's differentiating itself from the street level threats. Because like we said, before it was all one interconnected story. Now it's kind of having multiple stories within Marvel.
Yeah.
We have the street level with like Hawkeye, Falcon Winter Soldier. And then we have like the multiversal magic level with like Wanda and Strange. And we got the cosmic level with like the Guardians and Thor. And then now this is bringing in a new supernatural element, which is super, super cool. And I can't wait to see that and stuff like this. And maybe Agatha and the Werewolf by Night stuff that's coming as well. So this is super awesome to know about. So before we get to the super trippy part that we'll talk about here in a few minutes, we got to talk about what happened prior to get some more insight.
Okay.
It opens with, first, Khonshu is just in prison. Khonshu is placed in his imprisonment, which ripped Khonshu.
Also, there's like 9 other gods, I think I counted, which is weird because when you think back, what was it like during the first episode when Steven's talking to the girl, he's like, there's only 7 on this poster. There's supposed to be 9 of them.
9, yep.
So are there just more gods than they thought, or are those?
Well, in that group, there's supposed to be 9 in that section of group, but I don't know. See, I'm not I don't know every single Egyptian god. I just know like the main ones. So it's like super hard to really differentiate because there's multiple.
I'm not sure if that's going to be big or not.
I don't know.
I know it does seem weird though that just in the first episode they would randomly drop, hey, it's not this number, it's this number. Right. And then later you see like
it altered
how many gods there are.
It does. And it makes sense. And I definitely think that everything that they've shown has definitely been for a reason. So all I know is #free Khonshu. We want him back.
#free Khonshu.
We love Khonshu. Bring back my Khonshu.
He didn't do nothing wrong.
He's a homie.
Free my boy.
Free that dude. All right. So then we go from there, and Steven and Layla then go to the Tomb of Ahmed, right? And they try to get in this tomb to try to get to Ahmed before Harrow does and his group of people that follow him, which was super, super cool in and of itself. And then that relationship that's building between Layla and Steven was shown as well.
Dude, that was crazy, bro. First of all, if I was Mark, I probably just would have
I just
the crap out of myself.
Honestly, I would just let it happen because it's the same dude. I mean,
it's so weird. It's so weird watching the same body but a different personality. Kiss her. It
is pretty amazing how well. I just have to shout out to the writers for how well they have done to have Oscar Isaac play these 2 roles, maybe more roles. And them feeling like 2 different characters, completely different characters.
Yeah.
They did a really, really good job at that. Yeah. I love that.
And then not just him too, but dude, Layla's character has been really awesome.
She has been awesome as well.
I would say in this show.
Yeah, and so is Harrow. I mean, Harrow is also an amazing villain so far.
And I would say this episode in particular really explored Layla, her dad's story, and just kind of like her fears and like really who she was. Right. And that was really cool to see throughout the episode.
Which, if you kind of think about it, this episode really was from the point of view of Layla for the majority of it. So that's pretty cool to think about as well. That it went from her perspective for the most of the show.
I guess I didn't think about that.
Which kind of leads to her maybe possibly being someone more than we think, a more important character than we think she is. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes.
Okay.
But anyway, as we get into the tomb, we start hearing some things, right? and they're in this like looking like where they make mummies in this room where they make and do the mummies. And the next thing we know, they hide by when they hear something coming, and it's this freaky looking mummy thing.
Freaky deaky looking
That thing was scary, man.
Who's like taking people and then like mummifying them.
Yeah, and he
like,
took one of Harrow's followers and he mummified him. And I was like, oh my goodness.
What the crap? Was that the police officer?
No, it was the one dude that is usually like standing around Harrow that he was like, we found Ahmed's tomb, and then he was like, ah! That was that guy.
So I wonder, first of all, what's keeping that mummy alive? Like by what power?
Part of me wants to say, because I want to say it can't be one of Ahmed's creations, but then again, I feel like it probably was something of Ahmed to like protect stuff from people who aren't deserving, I guess, per se.
I feel like whatever that creature was, it was one of the people that was like left to guard the tomb,
right?
Or that died along with,
right. Which as they were entering the tomb, if you remember, they saw like all those bodies lined, and they're like, there's pictures and stuff, and it's like, this is the protection of Ahmed's tomb, or the protection of this tomb in particular of this pharaoh, as they realized, because they realized this was the tomb of a pharaoh. And the last avatar of Ahmed was a pharaoh. And it's until later we find out who that pharaoh is.
It couldn't be Ahmed, though, like keeping that creature alive. Because Khonshu, when he's locked up, doesn't have the power to, give the suit, give the healing power.
But
so
then again,
what is
Harrow does have some of the abilities of Ahmed.
Yeah, but they're stuck in the staffs.
Right.
So unless there's like some like physically stored power of Ahmed, like in the tomb or in the people themselves,
which is possible.
I wonder how. I don't think it's too big of a deal, but
no,
I'm just curious.
I don't know, and that's something I don't think they'll probably go back and explain anyway. They could, I don't know, but I thought it was just, I love the horror vibes. Like, I'm not a horror fan myself, but this show does really well when it gives that suspense. When you have that suspense going on, it does a really good job with that.
Bro, I was spooked, right? When she's walking along and like she turns around. I thought she was like gonna turn around and it's gonna be right there, like classic horror.
Right.
But it wasn't. Like it was behind her, like in the thing.
And it grabbed her.
Oh! And then she runs out and grabs her again. I was like, bro, how'd you get on the first time?
I know.
But
she got an arm. She took his arm off.
That dude tried to stab her with the bone.
And he was stabbing her bone, and then she stuck a flare in his eye, which was dope. that was cool. Awesome.
Shoved him off the edge.
And then shoved him off the cliff. So that was pretty
shout
awesome.
Layla.
Scene. Yeah,
I would have been peeing my pants.
I would have been freaking out.
Really?
Absolutely. Well, she did after she kicked him off. She just starts like, oh, that was terrible.
I would have done the same thing.
I would have. Oh man, I probably would have started crying if I'm being honest. After I was like, that's scary. But anyway, so we get all that going on while Layla's doing with that. We see Stephen Grant go into the tomb of the pharaoh, and then he realizes that this wasn't an Egyptian pharaoh, rather it was a Macedonian pharaoh.
Macedonian.
And then he's like, it was Alexander the Great, and we're like, whoa, man, he's a big figure in history,
dude. Yeah, I guess you could say that. First of all, I'm confused. Why would Alexander the Great's tomb be in Egypt? He didn't die in Egypt.
And I think the reason of this of history is because Alexander the Great was one of the greatest conquerors of all time in history, and he was able to conquer so much land that short period of time. And by doing that, I feel like he found a love of Egypt and Egypt culture. That's why, of course, the city Alexandria is named after him.
Yeah.
In Egypt. So I'm curious that I think probably is because they praised him so much like a god, that he loved it so much and he loved their culture so much that he wished to be buried there. Perhaps is what I'm going.
That's just crazy how a dude from Macedonia, like a ruler, goes and then he's buried like a pharaoh.
He just
that's
woke
crazy.
Up. He just woke up one day. It's like, I'm going to conquer the world, the known world, and he pretty much did it. So shout out to him.
do they reveal that he was Ahmed's avatar?
They apparently, anyway. We don't really know what's real and not real at this point.
So,
but yes, they revealed that Alexander the Great was Ahmed's previous avatar.
So maybe that's like a large, part of his success was the fact that he was, gifted powers by this god.
And I feel like that would make a ton of sense, and which is super cool because Alexander the Great's a pretty cool figure in history. So pretty awesome to go back and show that and to explain like
that was cool.
They'd never seen this tomb before. I found it and stuff.
Stephen Grant's like freaking out.
I know, and then he had to get in his mouth and take out this.
Sorry, Mr. Great breaks his jaw.
Had to get in there, and he took out the imprisoned version of Ahmed. And I don't know whether they just break it or what they're going to do with it. And then of course Layla has a conversation with Harrow that I found very interesting, and where Harrow reveals that Mark Spector was there when his father was killed.
Yeah,
and it could have been the one who killed him, apparently. in her mind. And of course, this leads her to not believe at first and then go in the process and be like, this is real. And then get angry and upset, which and completely understand. And shout out to her acting because she did a really good job acting.
Dude, she killed it.
She
can't even cap.
She did a good job with that. And then of course Steven was there and he was like, what? And then he turned into Mark because he was like, at that point,
I gotta deal with this.
Mark
right
needs to deal with this. And then Mark comes in.
Business decision.
He's like,
Steven.
I gotta go make a phone call. Let me go in the other room real quick. And then of course Mark comes out and they have this conversation and we get some more insight about Mark Spector's origin story. So that was really cool. What'd you think about that?
All right. So after hearing it, right, we hear that Mark's quote like partner, right, end quote, killed all the people at the dig site, tried to kill Mark too.
Yes. Which would have succeeded if it wasn't for Kamchu.
The question is, could that be Jake or could that be
someone else?
But like, here's the thing. If it was someone else, it wouldn't be a big reveal. Like in the entirety of the show, it wouldn't matter. But knowing that Jake is like a crazy like murderer,
which we have to explain that first.
That would make sense. Plus, if Mark knew about that, like of course he'd want to keep that under wraps. It wasn't him, yes, but it was.
Well, to explain a little bit more,
I think it's likely
about what Nathan's coming from because a lot of you guys we haven't even mentioned Jake Lockley on this podcast, except aside from the first episode. So we got to mention him and go in depth. Because a lot of you guys may not know about Jake Lockley. So Jake Lockley is what we're theorizing and what we think will be, it's got to be Mark Spector and Stephen Grant's third personality.
Yeah.
And who he is, of course, in the comics standpoint, he was just a cabbie. He was just somebody who drove a cab around trying to get info. That was his job. He was an informant, a street informant, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
And in this show, it seems like they're adapting him similar to what they did Stephen Grant, and they're adapting him to be more of like a serial killer kind of type who doesn't have no remorse against who he does and kills and stuff. Because, the hints towards Jake Lockley are, of course, the mirrors always has 3 of whoever's, of Oscar Isaac's, always shows 3 of him. And then also the date. Mark Spector would not have made that date in the first episode. It would have been Jake Lockley.
Facts. Yeah, because he's married. The fish
in the episode, something had to happen to the fish.
Mark had to replace it.
Something with that, along with in the first episode when he has a scarab and he killed all those guys.
Yeah.
Mark usually shows more remorse than that. So I feel like Mark could do it.
And they were just all like head blows.
They were
just
just
head
all
trauma.
dead. So I was then Jake.
The third episode when Grant wakes back up and all the like assassins, I guess, were like dead around him. And Mark's like, I didn't do that.
Exactly.
Right? Because Mark's not a cold-blooded killer.
Exactly. So that leads us to believe to a third personality being Jake Lockley. And then they're also saying, like you said, that Jake Lockley could have been the possibility and the one who actually killed Layla's dad and maybe even shot himself.
Like, I'm telling you, it has to be. And he tried to pull himself out of his misery.
I don't think it was, if I'm being honest. If I have to...
I think it is.
I don't think it's Jake Lockley because if I'm being honest, the comic origin is the same thing as they described. He had a friend who was with him, a partner, who betrayed them. That's what happened in the comics. I'm assuming that's what happened there. Someone who was a follower of Harrow is what happened here. Someone who was a follower of Ahmed was the one who did this. And he shot his dad and then tried to kill Mark as well because he knew Mark was a mercenary. And then Kamchu came in the picture and, saved Mark's life and made him Moon Knight. So I think it's more likely because I don't think Jake Lockley would do that and then shoot himself. It doesn't make sense that he would shoot himself. It really doesn't at this point because we don't know him yet. So I don't think he would shoot himself.
I think with the teases of Jake and the fact there's only 2 episodes, I don't think it will dwell on who the partner is. Maybe it was, but I think that'd be a crazy
it could.
reveal.
And then of course in the comics, of course we have Mark Spector's brother, who's also not the best dude ever. So we'll see what happens with that unless they adapt that or do certain situation. And you could be completely right. It could have been Jake. I just don't feel like it makes sense.
It will show it in either the next episode or the last one.
We hope. I don't know.
I think they'll unveil it.
Well, they should anyway. But to move on from that, after, of course, Mark has that conversation with Layla, Harrow comes in, right? And then they're like, we need to get out of here. But instead of that happening, they all come in. And then, of course, Mark has this awesome movement with his axe.
Kills like 3 dudes.
Yeah.
That was dope.
That was really cool. And then, of course, Arthur Harrow shoots him twice. And at that point, we're like, whoa, man, what's going to happen now? Because we know he can't be dead at this point, unless it's like episode 6. So he's not dead.
He gets shot twice and he falls in the water. I saw one comment on YouTube. It was like, oh, it's symbolic. He shot him twice because of the 2 personalities that he knew of.
That's just so stupid. He did that because he was still
alive.
standing. I mean,
I know. That'd be cool if it was.
it would be cool, but like that's the
Symbolism would be dope.
English teacher kind of mentality.
The rock was brown. Now you see what this actually means.
The guy was hungry.
Explains
This means-
world peace. Like something like that.
The guy ate a sandwich. Oh, this means he was hungry. And because of his hunger, he wants to help the world
Yes.
by showing his insides are in pain. I'm like, what? He was just hungry and wanted a sandwich, my guy. I don't understand English teachers sometimes. Anyway.
That's so true, dude.
It's so true. Facts. All right. Anyway, and then we go into what, of course,
gosh.
was the trippy scene of this episode, which was absolutely nutty. And the whole time I
Mind-blowing.
was like, what? I'm confused. This is leading to and that was the whole thing. When it first showed it, I was like, okay, this episode is going to end as soon as it shows Steven. We're just not going to have anything. And then, of course, it keeps going. I'm like, okay, is it going to end? When's it going to end? And it just kept going. I was like, oh, okay, they're giving us some information. And then it ended on a huge cliffhanger. And then now I'm like, okay, give me episode 5 now. I need it, please.
Facts. Disney.
And
Hurry it up.
I'm so excited. We have 2 more episodes left, and oh my goodness, this show has been so good. So I'm so excited. So let's break down the trippy scene. So initially, what did you think, Nathan?
Bro. I can't even tell you, dude. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I was just questioning everything. As like every like little thing that's happening. I was like, wait, was that real? Was that real? Is that who I think it is? Is that because like
Yeah.
a million thoughts?
Oh
dude.
yeah, million thoughts. At first, I was like, okay, so this is in like his brain, or like Khonshu is messing with him, or another god's messing with him, right? Or Ahmed's messing with him as he's in this thing. He's like, it's just inside of his head. Maybe he's like at the point almost to death. He's not quite dead yet, but he's almost dead. And his mind's playing these tricks on him, and he's seeing these visions. I had no idea. And then as it further got along, it showed different versions of like of what happened in the past episodes. Well, first it showed a past movie that's kind of like an Indiana Jones ripoff with Dr. Stephen Grant as the archaeologist in this movie. It's kind of like the Indiana Jones type British accent. And it hints at this is probably who Mark Spector, maybe watching this movie as a kid, based Stephen Grant upon.
That's definitely my theory. I think
that is true.
As a young kid
possibility.
suffering, he watched this actually real movie, saw Stephen Grant, the British accent, the whole knowledge thing. Is like, you know what? That's cool, and adopts that.
Right. He does adopt that. And I mean, of course, with him having these mental health issues, it also super trippy because it's in a mental health institution we see later. Which is super crazy. And then we see all the characters from previous episodes. We see the museum manager, what was her name? I forgot her. Donna, carrying the plushie thing. We see
Crowley, and he's calling out the bingo numbers.
All of the workers were Harrow's men. And Layla was a patient as well.
Wait, think about that.
Mhm.
Wait, if all the workers are the bad guys in the show, and all the patients
are the
good people.
Well,
I
the
guess
people involved in the show, yeah.
I guess because I think Crowley was a patient too, and he's like good,
right?
Well, at least from what we've seen.
So
maybe there's some symbolism in that.
I feel like there probably is. I mean, you have the kind of the oppressors as the good guys in this sense.
The enlightened ones, so to speak, by Ahmed,
right?
Are the sane ones.
Yes. And then we get so many details as well of previous episodes within this trippy scene. Of course, we see a girl drawing a bird that looks like Khonshu.
Yeah.
We see the fishbowl next to Steven or Mark or whoever. It was Mark at the time.
Yeah, it was Mark.
It was Mark. We see him attached, of course, to the wheelchair like he was attached to the bed. We see Layla as well, who comes over, and she's another health patient who's like a friend to him in a way. And then we see him like looking at his mirror, and of course he's like nonverbal at this point, and he's like sedated.
Drugged,
he's sedated, and then he gets rolled in to talk to Harrow, who's like a psychologist in the institution, which is crazy. You got the short hair glasses. You called that.
I was like, short hair glasses.
And then we see a picture of the Alps where they were at in the first episode.
Yeah, the first.
He had the white cane. It looks completely different.
He had the pyramid on his desk.
Pyramid on the desk. The other Egyptian things.
His shoes were the same though.
The shoes weren't quite the same, but they were symbolic that the shoes mean something.
Yeah.
And we see an alligator head in that room as well.
And in the back of the room, they had the Egyptian jars.
The Egyptian jars.
Preservation.
And then, of course, he was having this conversation with him about his health issues. And then he's like, you shot me. He's starting to have that realization. And then, of course, we're in our minds thinking, okay, this isn't reality, but is it reality or what's reality?
Is it? Yeah. What is this actually real?
Like,
was he actually in the ward the whole time? But he's just drugged in the actual real.
Right. Did any of this? Because he was actually holding a Moon Knight action figure as well.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more trippy. Oh my
Whoa.
goodness, so trippy. So like everything, because you're like, is this real? Is this the actual reality, or are we thinking? I'm thinking it's not the actual reality. It's just in his mind at that point.
Well, I'd say there's a lot of things that point to the fact that this ward is not reality. I say first of all, one of the first things we see is Crawley, and he calls B-22.
Right.
But later when it zooms in on one of the cards, that's not an option on it. I heard a couple theories that it's in reference to the 22nd, like I think, issue of Moon Knight, and on the cover of that issue, it shows all three personalities like coming out of a mirror,
Right. Together, to be together.
Yeah,
at the
like
same-
hinting at Jake, right, which we see later.
Right.
So I think that's like the first clear indicator that like, all right, like this isn't reality.
This is not reality. And I don't think it is reality at this point. I mean, I really think it's just inside of Mark Stevens and Jake's head at this point, because of course we see later that as Mark is running away from Harrow, or the psychiatrist version of Harrow anyway, that he runs into a room and that there is like a tomb there, or like a pharaoh tomb, and he opens it and it's Stephen Grant that comes out of it. And then now we got two of them. So and then they hug and they embrace.
Scene was great.
It was great.
Like
it was also wholesome because they like hugged and they got to actually finally.
Yeah, they're like, what was the last thing you remember? Like, we got shot.
We got shot.
Like, all right, yeah. So like, they're like, okay, we're sane.
And then they run out and they hear another like tomb thing rocking, but they don't go to it because they don't know about it.
Yeah.
But that's got to be Jake Lockley, right?
What's like the scary part about that? Like there was like no like screams for help or nothing. It's just like
shaking.
a beating.
Yeah.
Like,
which is a cool concept to me as well, to have like two personalities that are good and then one that's not. That's so cool. And like to see that, like, you know, him go back and forth between these ideas, and to go back to like your Mark Spector. Okay, he's Moon Knight. He has a goal to do good things. Stephen Grant, he's just trying to live his life, but he got dragged into this whole thing. And then Jake Lockley, who's just a terrible dude,
just
trying
evil.
to top everything.
And I did see a theory saying that Jake is the only one out of the three who can take control over the body without any permission, which is why like they wouldn't know about it.
Which would make total sense, because I don't think either of them know about him.
They just black out. He goes, kill some people. They wake up. They talk to each other. Did you kill him? No, I didn't do. They're like, okay, what the crap just happened?
Exactly.
So I definitely think we'll see Jake in the next episode.
We got to.
Bro, they tease him so hard.
They teased him throughout the whole series, but in this episode, so much.
Speaking of teasing Jake, I went back, and this one YouTuber I was watching was pointing to a couple scenes in number 3 where it was supposed to be Mark walking through the streets.
Right.
But there was a different accent. It almost sounded like it was from the north, like a Boston accent or something. And it was like literally for like 2 lines. It's like one and what was it? It's like one in episode 3 where they're at like the whole like carnival, and then one when he's talking to this dude on the street in Egypt. Dude, it's weird.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and rewatch it, but I'm telling you, what if he was like, what there were more scenes with Jake
than we know
in the
about.
first 4, and we just
could have
recognize it at the time.
Could have been like we could have seen multiple scenes with Jake and be like,
or like he knew about their accents, so like he adapted his
and changed
to try to fit in.
That could be completely possible.
You know, like how weird. See, with how trippy it is now, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a possibility.
It is very possible. I mean, everything's trippy, and of course, the ending was probably the most trippy, because as soon as they're running, they run into a giant hippo goddess who talks in the lowest, sweetest voice I can think of. Like,
that's
hi,
Gloria
guys.
from Madagascar.
It's literally Gloria.
I'm telling you right now, that's Gloria.
It's Gloria, and they scream like girls. It's hilarious.
Which is weird, because why would Mark be screaming?
I mean, it would freak me out too, man.
Yeah, but dude, you know how many times he's seen Khonshu and other Egyptian gods?
Yeah, but
why would another one?
He hasn't seen any other Egyptian god but Khonshu, and he was half
Khonshu's
dead.
10 times more scary than a hippo.
Yeah, but he was
guy.
half dead when Khonshu came into play, and then he got used to Khonshu. This hippo thing they just randomly see, and he's never seen a god that looks like full on like a hippo.
Yeah,
like Khonshu looks like a god, like he looks like scary, like looking, but it looks like a full on hippo that actually talks to him. I'd be pretty freaked out. I'm not gonna lie. So we get that. You know, we looked it up, and that was the god. What was their name?
Taweret,
who is the god of healing.
Yeah, she's a god of like fertility, like childbirth. But she also stands for rejuvenation and regeneration, right? And she was teased in the first episode because she's like the plushie toy that he brings in. So why is the god who represents regeneration and rejuvenation there?
If it wasn't reality, if it was in fact, because he just got shot. So I'm thinking that she comes in and goes into his head to try to save him.
I think she comes in, and I do think that she brings him back to life, knowing like how important he is to
Right.
the overall gist.
Right. But like, wow, what a crazy, trippy episode. Great episode. So far, Moon Knight has been so consistent, and I'm very glad. I'm super excited because this is the last episode that the press has seen. So nobody besides like the makers of Moon Knight have seen episode 5 and 6.
Really?
So I'm super excited. So we know nothing about them.
Dude,
so
I'm just like, I'm like kind of bummed in a sense too, because I know like for a fact after this comes out, I'll see like so many things on YouTube and like TikTok like breaking every detail down. Like, dang, like, dude, there's like 100 things happen we didn't even realize. I'm excited to see it, but
yeah, I think it's gonna be
crazy.
Great. We did what we could, but I'm super excited to see what's happening next. Of course, I want to say really, really quick, real briefly. We may talk about this in more episode, but hints of the Scarlet Scarab, who is another superhero that Layla will probably end up being.
Yeah.
Which of course with her finger had the red beetle on it.
Bro, yes, when she's crazy. Look at that finger.
Right. And then also there's other hints throughout the show that they talk about it, that there's a possibility of her being that. So we'll see in the coming episodes if that happens as well. But that is Moon Knight episode 4 in a nutshell, in a brief nutshell.
So wait, really quick, hitting back on that. You think she has a future in the MCU?
I do.
As this character?
Because I want to say, like, I feel like they're using her as a possible backup. Because Oscar Isaac, like you said, is only signed on to one season of Moon Knight.
Yeah.
He might not sign on anymore. So she could be a backup that they could use to have her become, like, the next Moon Knight, essentially. Because, of course, they hinted at Khonshu taking over her as well.
Yeah.
So it's a hinted possible she could be the next Moon Knight or something.
Well,
leading up to that.
I love her. She's great.
She's cool, but I still want
that's
Oscar Isaac to
crazy.
stay.
Scarlet Scarab.
Scarlet Scarab. So we'll see what happens in the future.
I'm excited. All right, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know by giving us a review and a download. Our next episode will be Thursday. Next week, we're breaking down episode 5 of Moon Knight.
Yes.
So check that out. And feel free to check out our latest episode, which was a Thor Love and Thunder teaser trailer breakdown.
Heck yeah.
So go ahead, check it out. It's a banger. That's for sure. So we appreciate the support.
We definitely would appreciate that. And we just want to thank you for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.